Holly, when did you first become aware and worried about what was happening with development in the Gallatin Valley and how it was impacting wildlife?
My first thought goes to when Seven Ranges, which is at the south end of the valley here outside of Gateway, was being tracked out into larger parcels. Um, it's a migratory path for a lot of the elk that move back and forth between the mouth of the canyon all the way over to Blackwood Road and past Zachariah to Cobb Hill. And pleasantly, I was surprised that the elk really have adapted to that subdivision. It's larger tracts, a lot of it's kept in farming. So that quickly quelled. But what really is the biggest impact for me about the elk and their struggles is the traffic. With Big Sky exploding and the corridor to get to and fro work for people that live in Bozeman, is Cottonwood and Gooch Hill roads, and that is the major crossing roads for these herds that can be, as few as 5 to 10 or up to 250. I would say the biggest impact for me is in the last 3 or 4 years. For the elk, what I'm seeing, their travel patterns change and their stresses increase. We did see a cow elk try to cross the road early this morning with a newborn calf, which quickly bedded down, and we'll wait for her to come back when it's a little quieter. So I'm sure she's watching from afar, but that is the urban struggle, for the elk. The development part of it, there's some things I think that are coming down the pike that are really going to influence the elk as it bottlenecks towards the canyon. But really, these places are staying intact, but we are seeing, older farms change hands. And with nothing being filed at the county commission and the planning department, we really don't know what's going to happen. But my guess would be that there's going to be some higher density development in these corridors.
As a photographer, you're both an artist and a documentarian. In other words, you're able to reveal to us what's going on in the Gallatin Valley. So what is it that you think your photos convey that people might not see otherwise?
Well, the images, as far as being a documentarian, came across really by accident. Here in the last year, it's just been a passion of mine since I moved here in '95, and I had the privilege of being on the Flying D, at the pinnacle of Ted's conservationism. I'm hoping that people don't just see it, oh, there's another pretty elk picture. I really try to capture them, even at their worst. I want people to know that the elk here really have daily struggles, and it's up to us, as Montanans, to preserve what they have the best we can. I'm not anti-development, but I do like development with purpose and thoughtfulness, and we could just be doing it so much better. So we really need to be mindful down here, of our impact on the wildlife, working with our farmers, to encourage them, to preserve some of this land, and present safe corridors for the wildlife, not just for the elk. I hope that my images inspire people to take a deep breath, slow down, smell the roses, remember why we're in this valley, and not just going to Yellowstone Park to see everything.
You've been working in large landscape conservation your entire career, and now you work for the Wildlife Conservation Society, looking at the plight of charismatic megafauna around the world. What is it that makes Greater Yellowstone special?
Well, hands down, what makes Greater Yellowstone special is the wildlife that's here. We still have all of the vertebrate species that were present at the time that Lewis and Clark came through here 200 years ago. And so we're the only place in the lower 48 that can still boast that. Not just the big megafauna, all of the vertebrates. People have referred to this as the American Serengeti for a reason. There is no other place in the lower 48 states where you could go and watch bison, wild bison, grazing across the landscape, and off in the distance, a pack of wolves is feeding on a kill that they'd made that morning, and a grizzly bear walks up and chases the wolves off. That happens regularly in this ecosystem. People are able to actually witness that.
One of the things you've talked about in the past is this, how wildlife are getting squeezed between private and public lands. Could you riff a little bit on that?
One of the important things about the pattern of public lands and private lands in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem is those private lands are mostly concentrated down into the fertile river valley bottoms. Those valley bottoms happen to be the grassland sagebrush habitat, which is supporting the species that are in greatest decline. Those are the areas that are the least protected. The public lands are mainly up in the mountainous areas, and those are the elk winter ranges. As more people move into the area, we need houses for those people. And where are they going to build those houses? Where they're not going to build them on public land, they're going to build them on private land.
When you look at what's happening in the greater Yellowstone, and particularly here in the Gallatin Valley, you know, what are the things that you see coming down the pike given current patterns?
You know, at current trends, you know, we're going to see continued expansion of development across the landscape, and the wildlife are going to become more and more squeezed and not be able to move across the landscape as they have been. It's going to probably result in a reduction in populations of those wildlife, but possibly more than anything, the culture of this landscape is going to change. As Bozeman continues to expand across this area, we're already seeing impacts of elk down in this area. They used to come right up in within the Bozeman city limits, and now they still come down into this area, but I haven't seen them down in here for years.
We're looking at the Bridger Mountains over there. We're looking at agrarian fields toward Bozeman. What's coming this way?
More of that.